whenever a new client comes in and they starting to ask for specific gig that haven't been done before inside the platform, that requires us to invite new freelancers into the platform. And these are the people that we usually don't know yet. We're not too familiar with. So that's usually when the risk goes up.
Hi, I'm Eric Schwartzman, author of The Digital Pivot, and this is the Earned Media Podcast. My guest today is freelance journalist turned writer and now COO of ContentGrow, Enricko Lukman. Enricko, welcome.
Hey, hi. Awesome to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm psyched to have you here because I love ContentGrow. It's helped me so much in my business. I've been able to find writers on the marketplace and really scale my deliverables for clients through the marketplace. But just to kick it off, tell us a little bit about ContentGrow. What is ContentGrow?
Great to hear that you're having a great time using ContentGrow. So basically, it's a managed marketplace for to help brands and publishers discover and work with freelance writers and journalists. So I think the key problems that you want to solve right now is basically helping content teams easily discover project appropriate freelancers. So right now everything is still mostly done manually. If you want to find good writers for your project, you need to either you need to find one from word of mouth, for example, or you need to do outbound approach, look them up on LinkedIn or use marketplace sites. What we want to solve is that, well, we can help curate good talents for you, and then you can start working with them.
And you're based in Jakarta, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that where you're from?
Yeah. Born and raised in Jakarta.
So you got to tell me the secret. Obviously, there's freelancers all over the world, and a lot of people outsourcing through gig marketplaces to Asia. But my experience has been Jakarta is just a hot spot for some of the best talent on the globe when it comes to marketing. I mean, I have an amazing designer who I found on Fiverr. He's in Jakarta. And then people I know at other small businesses use designers in Jakarta to design their products. So what is it about Jakarta that has such a high number of, successful freelancers who seem to really have their finger on the pulse of, pop culture?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What is it about Jakarta? I think it's Southeast, the region overall in Southeast Asia. There are already a lot of freelancers doing very well. I think when it comes to quality, there are so many good talents around inside the region, and what makes it so special? That's a good question, because I know that everything here is already modern. We have very fast internet connections, and lots of. If we look at, for example, tech companies in Indonesia, there are already multiple unicorns, companies that are worth more than $1 billion, and a lot of those people work at those companies, and they level up their skill sets. And I think they're also, I think they're also exposed to the idea of international opportunities, because the thing is, despite they have good skill sets in Jakarta, the price here is quite affordable. Everything here is quite a lot cheaper as compared to more developed nations like the US, for example. So I think skill-wise, we have a lot of places to to develop our skills in Jakarta, and we've built a lot of unicorns. And then, yeah, the freelancing landscape. It's a good thing because we still live in Jakarta currency, and so it's going to be a bit cheaper for developed countries and clients to look into the talents inside Jakarta.
So, one of the biggest challenges in tech businesses is starting a marketplace, because in a marketplace, you're not just selling to someone. You need two sides. You have to build two markets at the same place, buyers and sellers, so that you can help them with the transaction. It's really a huge challenge. How did you guys pull it off?
Agree, 100%. How did we pull it off? We started by doing everything manually. So at the very start, back in 2015, me and my co-founder, he's an American, by the way, my co-founder, Leighton. So
Leighton is an American, huh? Where's Leighton from?
He's from Portland, Oregon, but
Oregon.
he lives in Jakarta.
He lives there now, but he's from
lives
Oregon.
in Indonesia as well, in Surabaya. So he has a family here.
Got it.
No.
So you guys basically launched ContentGrow together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And did you bootstrap it? Did you raise money? How did you get it off the ground?
At the very beginning, we bootstrapped it. So it was a side gig for both of us. So it started from us, just the two of us being freelance journalists and writers for several clients. But then after we got their trust, the clients started asking us whether we can refer them to other freelance journalists. So we saw an opportunity because I think there was a problem that we could solve. So what we did was that we started offering clients to just give all the work to us, and then we can scale it from our own back end. So we subcontract all the gigs to other freelancers that we know, and then we edit those, and then we share the results with the client. So that's the very beginning, how it all started. But then we saw that it wasn't scalable using just spreadsheets to manage all the freelancers. And then we also found another problem. The work becomes too much when we had to work with, let's say, 20 to 30 freelancers at the same time. And then having to edit all the work and then still managing the client. So we finally decided that we should, rather than we keep all the margins, we keep all the profits, why not just connect clients with the freelancers directly? So that's the early idea of how we build ContentGrow. So it's a lot simpler.
You have the chicken and the egg problem with a marketplace. You have to have the writers to get the clients, but then you have to have the clients to get the writers. And there's been some interesting stories. I think Reid Hoffman in his book Blitzscaling wrote a lot about how Uber would sort of artificially subsidize pricing in the market to encourage drivers to start picking up passengers before there was critical mass, when they were still competing. It seems like such a huge challenge. How did that work for you? How did you manage to get the writers and the clients at the same time?
From our experience, because we are former journalists ourselves, it was easier for us to find other freelancers. So from our perspective, the chicken and egg problem doesn't really does it exist? It could be, but the biggest challenge back then wasn't looking for freelancers; it was looking for clients. So whenever we have one client, we're able to use that client's name to rope in multiple freelancers and invite them into the platform. So that's our flow right now, because I think what we know is it's easier to find a seller, people who's looking for money, as compared to finding buyers, people who's willing to shell out money. So our focus has always our primary focus would be find buyers, and then sellers will come in eventually.
So, I spent a good part of my career training with companies all over the world. And while there obviously are very advanced companies all over the world, you do find generally that the uptake for digital marketing is different in different countries. Some countries are more aggressive, some are a little later to the table. Do you find that most of your clients are Asia-based, or are you serving mostly Western-based companies?
Good question. We're serving mostly. I want to say that there's a specific region that we serve, but we have good clients coming from Asia and the West. Oh, I guess just the US and the rest would be Southeast Asia. That would be the main user base right now. Sorry, what was the question again?
That was the question. I mean, I'm just kind of wondering how it breaks down. I can tell you that, like, when I'm assigning content, I tend to go to you when I'm looking for either writers who are knowledgeable about Southeast Asia or writers who are knowledgeable about Australia or New Zealand. That tends to be, kind of, and I also tend to go to you guys if I'm looking for a writer that's good at financial writing, or often if I'm looking for a writer that's really good at writing about lifestyle brands. I've had really good luck finding writers with you guys. And the cool thing is many of your writers freelance for the South China Post and, major publications in that region. So it does give you, when you're looking at the portfolio, at least some confidence that, it's not going to be that hard to have to edit it. But obviously you do find that some people may do a better job for the South China Morning Post than they do for you. And then that becomes difficult as well. How many writers do you guys have?
Inside our database, we have around 2,500, but most of them are still inside a spreadsheet. So right now, the focus would be to migrate them into our own platform. So when freelancers sign up, they get a free portfolio. So that's one of the ways we incentivize people to come in. And when they have a portfolio, it's going to be easier to connect them with future clients. So around 2,500 inside the database right now.
And what kind of volume are you doing? I mean, how many people are using the service?
I guess it's still less than 100 clients concurrently. So,
and what kind of projects? I mean,
it was like a few hundreds of content.
What sort of content is the most common content that gets outsourced through ContentGrow? Is it blog posts? Is it product pages? Is it collection pages? Is it white papers? What is it?
When it comes to quantity, the number one would be news. Would be journalism articles. So publishers would come in, work with our freelancers, and then they would either A, assign gigs, assign briefs, or B, most of them would want to take in pitches. So they would post a pitch request, and then freelancers would submit ideas, and then when approved, they create the brief. So majority, when it comes to quantity, would be journalism, and then the second one would be PR actually. So press releases, companies come to us. They want to create press release, and they usually want to work with freelance journalists because journalists would be more familiar about the kind of content that would be effective when for press release purposes. So that's the number two. Number three would be articles. So brands would. So that's what's happening.
So when you say articles, do you mean media publishing organizations are going there to find writers to assign stories to, or more content marketing?
Connection unstable.
Yeah. It's in and out. But I'll repeat my question. I'll repeat my last question. So when you say article, do you mean that most clients are actually media publications looking for journalists to write stories, or is it mostly marketers looking for content marketing content for their blogs?
It's the first one. So interestingly, the biggest users right now would be publishers at ContentGrow.
That's awesome. I think that's a great selling point for the content marketing community, because the content marketing community is trying to create articles that are as good as journalism, as true journalism, and it's tough to do that because often if you hire a copywriter, they're going to write in a voice that has too hard of a sell, or they're going to they don't understand the difference between opinion and news, and so they're going to use adjectives and adverbs, and then you have to sort of manually teach them the process of journalism, which obviously isn't really scalable if you're one person trying to do a lot of content. How does ContentGrow make money? How do you guys charge?
We take commission and surcharge from both sides. So from the client side, we take a 10% surcharge. And then from the freelancer side, we're taking a 10% commission.
So you're making 20%.
A total of 20%.
20% on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the biggest challenges that clients have with your site? What's the nagging question that you hear all the time? What keeps you up at night?
Right now would be figuring out how to scale the pitch request process. So right now clients would be publishing pitch requests, and then the goal, the challenge is to get to put in as many quality pitches as possible. So that has been one of the key challenges. We're still solving this manually right now, so not by system. So we still need to reach out to the freelancers one by one, asking them to submit pitches or getting their feedback about the reasons why they're not submitting pitches. We're looking to hopefully scale this along the way.
Is there any concern that maybe the reason they're not submitting pitches is because there's no guarantee that they're going to be the ones that are going to write those stories? So maybe they feel like, well, why should I pitch all these ideas if I'm not even maybe going to be hired to write the story?
That's correct. Yeah. Freelancers, they prioritize confirmed paid gigs. So when there's a brief open for claim, in seconds, it will be claimed by freelancers. No, there's no problem at all. So when clients come in, create a brief, and it's open for claim, anybody who's inside the project can claim it. It's usually grabbed within seconds. But when it comes to pitches, it's a different thing.
What kind of per word price are clients paying? What's the range?
The range. Usually the total number of word count per story would be 700 to 900 words. At the end of last year, we made a decision to start charging clients at least $100 for all stories, and then there will be different client tiers looking for different qualities. So we're looking at usually it's between $150 to $300 per blog post for 700 to 900 words.
And is the writer also expected to write captions for photos or source photos?
Yeah, depends. So I think 90% or 70% of the clients, they don't really need the photos. The rest, yeah. So mostly they just want text, clients.
So one of the challenges with, and really not just you guys, but any gig marketplace, if you're outsourcing and you have deadlines for your client, and you hire all these freelancers to deliver against all these deadlines, and they just don't deliver or ghost you, then you're kind of like screwed. There's nothing you can do about it. How is there any way clients can manage against that risk?
That's a really good question. One of the things that we're trying to solve as well. Right now, we only go based on usually when we recommend writers, usually it's the writers that have good track record already. So when we say track record, one, clients are happy with their work quality. Two, they submit things on time. So after operating for in the past 3 years, we know which ones to recommend usually. And the risk comes now whenever a new client comes in and they starting to ask for specific gig that haven't been done before inside the platform. That requires us to invite new freelancers into the platform. And these are the people that we usually don't know yet. We're not too familiar with. So that's usually when the risk goes up. So when this happens, we usually just need to manually make sure that everything goes smoothly. And so we look at when the deadline is quite close. We need to ask the freelancer whether everything is fine or not, whether they're responsive or not. So that's how we usually help clients make sure they can get good content.
But why would you have to invite new writers? Explain why that would be the case.
Because sometimes clients have specific needs and a very specific. They want to create content in a specific niche. For example, there would be a client who wants to do a content piece about South Africa, and they only want people who's in that region to create the content. And maybe we don't have anyone yet in South Africa that's reliable, so we need to look for new writers. So number one would be region. Number two would be expertise. So let me think of a recent example. Somebody who lives in the US but knows a lot about the UK market. So that's also one interesting aspect that that's an interesting need that we needed to fulfill.
Because so Enricko, you're basically what I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think I'm hearing is you're acknowledging that clients are looking for writers with subject matter expertise in certain topic areas. And that if you don't have writers in those topic areas, you can't fulfill the client's needs. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
It's really refreshing to hear you say that, because I think a lot of people believe that, well, if you have a good writer, they should be able to write about anything. And I think there is some truth to that, assuming that the writer has a salary and can afford to spend the time to come up to speed on a certain topic. But if you're a freelancer, you're just working hand to mouth. You've got to crank out those stories quickly. You don't have the time. And what I've found happens when you hire a freelancer writer through a gig network that doesn't have subject matter expertise is you wind up getting an article, which is a summary of all the top ranking content that's online. And if you're a marketer like me, who's trying to create content that will keep people on the page, keep them from bouncing and get them to click through, that doesn't work, because all you're doing is helping the guys that you stole the information from by reusing their content. They'll even include links to the content that they're sourcing. So it's like crazy, right? And I do think, search is a zero-sum game. I mean, there's 4 or 5 top positions against a keyword search. If you want to be 1, 2, or 3, or 4, you have to have the best content for that query. It's not about tricking Google into thinking you have the best content. It's about actually having the best content. And of course, you can't do that if the person doesn't have subject matter expertise. So thank you for confirming my suspicion on that one, because it's good to hear.
I just want to add one more thing.
Yep. Go ahead.
One more finding that I thought was interesting is that the more senior the freelancer, they also want to only focus on writing specific subjects. So actually the ones, they're quite particular. So if they're very good at travel content, and then we ask them to do something about just celebrity gossips, they will say no. That's not what that's not my expertise, so I'm not gonna do it. So yeah, that's interesting because the more junior the writers, they'll be like, I'll do anything, any type of content, I'll do it.
So on a lot of online marketplace gig sites, the identity of the buyer and the seller is masked. They just show the first name with the last name initial. They're afraid that if the buyer and seller know each other's name, they're going to go direct and cut the online marketplace out of the deal. Obviously, if you're a sophisticated customer and you go direct, you don't have the escrow service to protect you from the transfer of funds, which is one of the values of the marketplace. You also don't have someone at the company who will help you if things go in a bad direction. So I think a more sophisticated buyer is not going to want to go direct because they're going to want the help of the middleman in case there's a problem. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting that you guys aren't forcing that by hiding the identity of the writer, which I think is really great, because at the end of the day, if you're publishing content from a writer, it's got to be under their byline anyways, because Google page quality guidelines are now acknowledging that the writer and the name of the writer and the bio of the writer and links to the writer's work is a signal of page quality. So why is it that you guys made that decision? And is there any disagreement between you and Leighton about whether or not you should mask the writer's identity or not? How did you get to where you are now?
Good question. We decided, I think number one is we decided that we should, in this business world, let's just trust people. So that's the number one thing that we decided. Maybe it's not as business minded, but we thought that if we're able to trust people and it goes smoothly, yeah, that's plan A, of course. We have less things to worry about. That's too idealistic, but that's the number one thing that we did. Number two, yeah, the writers also sell. So when we talk about when we talk about why we don't mask the writer's identity, is because they also sell themselves to the client because they're of their expertise. So if we only say their first name and only a few things, well, maybe let me recap. Number one, we think that we just want to trust the process and trust everyone. But number two, it's quite hard to mask everything, especially when we want to showcase their portfolio, their writers. So when it comes to feasibility, it's quite tough already in the big. So why make the effort at all? Number two, yeah, writers with good portfolio, as long as we give them some good benefits for both sides, we just trust that they'll just want to go through the safer route. So in this case, for the client, it's going to be easier for them to get recommended talents from us, and for the client and even for the writers, we give them guaranteed payments. So we have, from our experience, we have a few clients who ghosted us, who came in, created briefs, and then just ran away. So even when that happens in the past, we just paid the writers what we're owed, because I guess it's our fault. That's how we saw it. So we needed to vet clients better. So that's one of the services that we offer to the freelancers. So when they get briefs, they know that they're gonna get paid.
Talk to me about your software development strategy, because the way I see it, looks like you've intentionally kept the site very skinny. You're not trying to do all the keyword discovery and SEO and the editing. I mean, it's just sort of a marketplace, very simple. You can use Google Docs, you can use Slack, you can use whatever comms channel you want with your writers, just so long as the transaction goes through the platform. Was that intentional? Do you have would you like to expand the platform? Where are you going with ContentGrow's platform from a software standpoint?
It's definitely intentional. We want to keep things simple. From what we saw and what we read from lots of books, we think we need to treat the website and the platform just like a museum. So it's not about the number of quantities of features that we need to put in, but it's also as important to think about the kind of features that we shouldn't put inside the platform to make things as easy and as intuitive as possible. And we also focus on the biggest problems that we identify that we think when we solve this, the future would be better for everyone. So the two biggest problem that we thought that we should solve would be, number one, helping clients find appropriate freelancers easily. So that's the number one thing that we thought, that because it's, like I mentioned in the very beginning, it's a rigorous process to find a writer that fits the client. Number two, making the working process easy as easy as possible. So a lot of people have their own preferences. So one person would be using Google Docs. Another person will want to do a call with Google Meet or Microsoft Teams. Another person would just want to keep things simple and just sending chats. So we don't want to make anything. Don't want to make it too complex. Just anybody who comes in, they can just use it intuitively. And when it comes to payments, they can just use either Stripe or PayPal, and that's it. They can pay to hundreds of freelancers in just one go. It wasn't, this is the second version of ContentGrow, by the way. If you look, when you open it, the URL would be 2.contentgrow.com. So number 1.contentgrow.com. The first time we launched, it was a lot more complex, a lot of more features. We allowed companies to build groups. We allowed companies to create individual invoices for each brief, and it became too complex and too confusing. A lot of questions kept going in, and we started deleting a lot of features and decided to keep things simple. And I think it was a good call because everybody are still using it, and we have less questions now, and they can still get the main job done.
And what's next for you guys? Where do you see yourself going? Where do you want to go with this company?
I think what we have right now would be just to solve this issue. I think the ideal case would be if we can one day automate the entire process of client being able to discover and find good writers to work with. So that's the biggest thing that we're looking at right now.
The search.
Where do we go from here? I think I think in the future, where do we go right now? That's a good question. I think we're just thinking that there's in the future, clients and buyers finding good writers, appropriate writers would be as simple as hitting that publish button. So that's the vision. We want to just focus on helping, making that dream a reality. And and then I think the number two aspect that we look at for the future would be, are you familiar with the concept of the Calm company, Eric?
The what company?
The Calm company.
Calm. Calm. The company Calm. I mean, I know of the company, but tell me what.
It's a concept.
Okay.
So
I'm not familiar with that then. I'm familiar with a company that's called Calm, CALM.
Yeah. It's a different thing. So
okay.
A founder of a founder
Basecamp.
From Basecamp. Yeah. He wrote a book about the concept of being like a calm company. So it's a concept. So
what's the name of the book?
it doesn't have to be crazy at work. So that's the really name of the book. It
doesn't
have to be crazy at work.
Crazy at work. I love it. A book recommendation. Thank you.
It says that you don't need to become a company that's always chasing a $1 billion status. You don't need to be a company who becomes who has 1,000 employees to be your end goal. It's okay to have just like 20 to 50 companies just generating a few $1 million a year or a month. It's okay to keep things small and lean and be profitable. So don't just chase valuation. So that's also the vision that we want to go for. We want to solve that problem, helping companies and publishers and brands find writers easily. We want to scale, and then we want to keep things small and simple, even internally.
Cool. Well, hey, I'm so glad I found you guys. For me, I was just one night searching, for services like yours, and I actually found about 4 or 5 of them. And you were one that I started doing. I gave it a try. It was a total like just flying without a net. Okay, let's see. And it did work out. And I ran a good amount of business through your platform for a client that I was working with earlier this year. And then I found one other in the States that I've been using as well, but the other ones didn't work out for me. But it's, I started originally trying to find writers on Upwork. And I mean, that was a shit show. I mean, if I can just be frank, because, you don't know anything what you've got there. And at least it seemed like when I looked at the portfolios on ContentGrow that I could see a portfolio and I could see the writer's credits on known publications. And that gave me some solace. And the other firm that I'm using as well does a similar type of thing where they maintain a portfolio. Though it's interesting, what I've learned through this discussion with you is you're really more focused on journalists for the media, and the other company that I'm working with is really more focused on content for marketers.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And if you listen to the last episode of my podcast before this one, you can find out who that client is, who that other company that I'm using that has a marketplace is. But out of respect for you and this podcast, I won't mention it here in this discussion. But I do want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And I also want to thank you and Leighton for building ContentGrow, because it really got me out of a jam, man. I had a blog going where I was publishing about 12 articles a month. And I love to write. It's my favorite thing to do, but I don't scale, So it was great that I was able to sort of move into the editorial role as an editor and scale and get that work done.
Yeah, and thank you again for trusting ContentGrow for your content creation needs. It's been an honor, by the way, speaking with you in this podcast.
Hey, likewise. And if you're listening to this and you're a content marketer and you need to scale, you should definitely check these guys out because it works. I'm living proof of that. So Enricko, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
So thank you for having me. It's been great also speaking with you.
For more on how you can earn influence through earned media, get the Digital Pivot audiobook at digitalpivotbook.com.